beginning, because I remember when I was young, I always adopted this idea of being open, like, as you know, like you said, it like firsthand. Growing up in Egypt is not easy. It's a very closed society. Growing up as a woman, in particular, in Egypt, is as a girl, as a woman, is not easy at all. It's a very closed society, contrary to what is being promoted about it. We are suffering from many social laws and many religious laws that are being imposed on us from the very early years of our lives. To be a good girl, you have to act in a certain way. The society always expects you to act in a certain way. Your family expects you to act in a certain way. But so actually, I have this rebellious soul in my heart, in my deep inside of me, and my father somehow realized this from a very early age. And unlike the stereotype of all of the men in Egypt in general being over controlling and being, this patriarchal mentality, my father was not like that. Despite being a military engineer, he was a military man, but he was not like that at all. He was very open-minded. He was very supportive to me as his eldest child, and always proud of me being rebellious against these laws and against these people who are trying to control me and control my will all the time. And I used to complain to him all the time about how bad the people are, how the people are like, want to control me. And he always responded like this: be the flower in the trash. Don't mind what is happening around you. It doesn't, it should not affect you. You should be the flower and turn the whole scene into something beautiful, even if the whole scene is already a trash. So his words remained with me forever, for until today, and it will remain with me forever, and has been guiding me all the way. Including even when I started activism, I started relatively early, like in high school, and then in the first years of college. I started like to care much about women's rights. I was mainly fighting against female genital mutilation, which is a horrific practice that's happening in our country and also in some African countries. And this was like my first passion, my main cause. Like, I have to make it stop from happening. And from there, I started to learn about the great world about human rights activism. And I started to join human rights organizations and become an activist in hope, like, to make some change in our society. Then I was able to play a role in the Arab Spring, and we were able, like, to make massive changes happen. But soon after, we got this big shock of seeing the Muslim Brotherhood like hijacking our revolution and our work and just becoming the new rulers of Egypt. At that time, honestly, this was a big shock for me. Like, I thought, like, somehow feeling guilty for enabling them somehow to get to this
Mm.
position, although indirectly. Of course, like, I
Mhm.
didn't do this in purpose. It's completely indirectly. But making this revolution enabled the Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafists to take over, and they started to, like, promote or to voice things that are very hostile to women in particular, like encouraging child marriage. Not only encouraging, actually, they were discussing legislations to enable like families to marry their girls at 9 and 8 years old, and also making legislations to allow the practice of female genital mutilation, horrific things like this. So I thought, okay, the fight is not over. Let me get involved somehow in getting these people out of power. And I continued my activism, and thank God, like, the Egyptian people stood up against them, and we were able to get rid of them soon after that. And my fight continued afterwards, because I'm a big believer in peace, and I think that if Arab-Israel peace is achieved somehow, it will definitely lead to a better region, will help us get rid of those Islamists, Islamic extremists, and the radicals. That's why I continued, like, pressuring for this and participating even on track to initiatives like people to people conversa dialogues and talks to enable this and make this happen until unfortunately recently when I decide like to speak up against the terrorism of Hamas practiced against Israeli civilians, particularly against the women and the children in Israel. I was received by a horrible backlash from my fellow Egyptians, from my fellow Muslims who actually like are now labeling me as a Zionist, as a disbeliever, blasphemy, and accusing me of committing high treason and being a national security to my own homeland, Egypt.